Welcome. This is going to be a great hour. We're going to spend together exploring the latest issue of Frontline Initiative, Making a Career in Direct Support. I'd like to introduce you to our President and CEO of the National Alliance for Direct Support Professionals, Joseph Macbeth. Joseph Macbeth, take it away.
Greetings. My name is Joe Macbeth, and I'm the President and CEO of the National Alliance for Direct Support Professionals. And thank you for joining us today for this really important webinar, Making a Career in Direct Support. Before I give a more formal introduction to our speakers and our interviews today, I want to just ask a general question and some food for thought. Speaking of making a career in direct support, it's important for our profession to get and monitor and keep on top of important news that is specific to our profession. And my question is, where do direct support professionals get their news? And in my experience in working with tens of thousands of DSPs, many of them tell us that they get it from their organization, their employers, maybe their coworkers, and I think that's important to stay in tune with your organization's culture. But I think we need to consider what other information is out there. Are we monitoring the NADSP's website? Are we monitoring the University of Minnesota's Research and Training Center's website, where there's a lot of information for direct support professionals? The International Journal for Direct Support Professionals that our colleague Dave Hingsberger up in Toronto, Canada puts out every month. And we take that one step further and do a webinar with the author of those monthly journal articles. So are we getting good information, accurate information, important and changing information about the direct support profession? Exceptional Parent Magazine is another one where our medical director, Dr. Rader, is the editor-in-chief. Today, it's the Frontline Initiative, which is a journal that we have been putting out for almost 20 years with our colleagues at the University of Minnesota's Research and Training Center. Every issue of the Frontline Initiative is focused on one particular item, one area. Our most recent one is making a profession. We've had articles come in from family members, people with disabilities, direct support professionals, researchers, other professionals, to create this really great resource for you. It's online. We want you to use it and share it. And for any trainers out there, then share it and make it part of your training. That's how we create a profession. That's one reason. One way to create a profession. So stay on top of your news and make sure that the news that you receive is accurate. And I know that during these times, during COVID-19, things have been turned upside down. And nobody knows that better than direct support professionals and what you've gone through and what you continue to go through. But we hope that today's webinar is going to be helping you understand how vitally and critically important you are. The first interview we have is with Chet Cheddar, who is one of our editors of Frontline Initiative, who also happens to be a board member of NADSP. And she'll be interviewing a gentleman named Ken Reedy. And we met Ken last winter, just as the pandemic was starting to spread. And Ken went from a trainer of direct support professionals to working as a direct support professional side by side. And it really opened his eyes, and it reinforced how critically important direct support professionals are in the everyday lives of people with disabilities, but more so during a pandemic, and keeping people healthy and safe and free from this horrible virus. And Ken has some really good information. So you'll meet Ken and Chet. Dan Hermrich, our Director of Certification and Accreditation, who oversees our E-Badge Academy and credentialing programs, is going to be introducing you to Jen Peterson from an organization named Black Hills Works. And they're going to be talking about how credentialing has helped Jen in her career. And lastly, a colleague of ours from Medford, Oregon, Emily Wild Turner, who runs an organization in Southern Oregon, and also a mom of a child with disabilities, is going to be talking about the power of language. And John Raphael, who you'll meet soon, is going to be introducing you and interviewing Emily. So stay tuned for this really important webinar. We hope that you enjoy it and stay engaged, not only with us, but with the current information and the news that's readily available to you in a lot of different formats. So thank you and be safe. Wear your mask.
Hello, everybody. My name is Chet Cheddar, and I'm an education specialist at the University of Minnesota's Institute on Community Integration. I'm here today with our friend Ken Reedy, and we're going to be talking a little bit about how DSPs are doing at this point of the pandemic. Ken?
Hi, everybody. Yes, my name is Ken Reedy. I am from New York. I work at an agency named YAI out here in New York. I've been a DSP right now. My position is staff trainer, but as you can imagine, over the course of the pandemic, I've been doing a little bit of everything. So yeah, let's get into it.
So Ken, based upon the work that you're doing, I know that you've been very involved with supporting DSPs and also doing some DSP work yourself as you're helping support the people that you provide services to. Can you tell me, I mean, we're about a year into this pandemic. It's hard to believe that, but about a year in, how are DSPs coping? How are they getting through this really difficult time after it being such a long time? What are you seeing?
It's a really good question. I mean, I'm amazed at what DSPs are doing and how they're getting through this, and especially coming from day services. You know, our DSPs their whole lives are blown up. You know, and not to downplay any part of the field, but for people who work residential, most of them are still working in their same houses. Maybe their hours have changed. But, you know, our day services staff, they're not working at day. They're working at different residences. Their hours have changed. The people they work with has changed. And, you know, I mean, it's an interesting question. Like, how are they coping? They're getting by. I don't know if everyone is coping in the best way. You know, it's been tough. It's been a really tough run. And I can't believe we're like, you know, we're almost a year into this. And I think, to me, I think the biggest issue with coping per se is like, there's no end in sight. I mean, things are getting better in the vaccine and the, you know, there are issues with the rollout, but I think it'd be easier to cope, even if it was like next year. You know, if you gave me a date, it was like January 1st, 2022, we're back to normal. I think that helps people. Like, then you can cope and be like, all right, now I have a timetable. The unknown right now is making it really difficult for people to cope. So as far as the question, I think DSPs are coping, but it's not like they're doing well, I guess. From what they're stressed, they're burdened. The DSPs that talk to me, it's been a tough go. And a lot of times they don't feel supported. So they're coping, which I admire the hell out of everybody who's coping their way through this, but it's been tough.
What do you think are some things that, or what are some things they're saying that they're doing for kind of self-care in getting through this? Are they needing to advocate for the things that they need from their supervisors in regards to not only supplies, but also time off and those sorts of things?
They do. I mean, yeah, they have to advocate for themselves. I don't know how many of them really are, which is a problem. I think one of the biggest issues with coping per se is we need more from management to, I don't think people understand how far gratitude can go and how much, I mean, look, no one's getting rich in this field. Everyone's getting, you know, it's not the best field to be in. And you have to give of yourself every time you walk through the door. Mm-hmm. A thank you goes a long way. And I do think that we're seriously lacking in that mode of appreciation where, you know, just a manager to just say, hey, you know what? I know this sucks. I know this is tough. And you know what? In all honesty, I wish I could do more, but I can't. But I just want to thank you for coming in today. I want to thank you for being here. And to me, I think our DSPs are not advocating so much for themselves as they are for the people we support, which is the nature of the beast. But on the flip side, I don't think we see enough managers recognizing that and kind of taking that proactive approach. Like, I'm going to make sure that my staff are taking care of themselves. And, you know, to that end, I'm excited because I kind of spearheaded in my agency. We're going to come up with a self-care training, and we're making it mandatory. So there's you can't get out of it, or, managers can't, get out of sending their staff because coverage is bad. Like they have to go through it. And we're coming up with different directives where there's going to be a management tract of, you need to obviously engage in self-care, but you got to make sure your staff are taken care of, and you got to make sure they're taking that time, whether it's just like before you start your shift, take a minute-long meditation or something. But that's not there. And when I think the spotlight has really been shined on that now because of the pandemic. And the appreciation for our DSPs wasn't there beforehand. And now you pile on a pandemic, and it's exacerbated. And that's where I think that it's got to be a cohesive effort and a culture change and culture shift that we look at. All right, our DSPs are out there on the front lines, and our DSPs are literally risking their lives during this pandemic and doing jobs that they're not used to doing, and they're not getting the appreciation that they deserve.
Appreciation really needs to be intentional, doesn't it? And what I'm hearing, your organization is taking some very intentional steps to say, this is important to us because you're important to us, right? And
yes, and honestly,
go ahead.
It's for me, it's been not to pat myself on the back, but it's been me. Like I've been like spearheading this. Like we have to do better with this, and I've been pushing it because I've periodically throughout the pandemic, I've sent out an email just thanking staff for what they're doing and recognizing how difficult it is. I've had staff come up to me in tears, just thanking me for the email. And if you're coming up to me, your staff trainer, in tears from an email that I send every month, every couple months, that appreciation is lacking. Like, you should feel appreciated all the time. It shouldn't be a sporadic email that I happen to send out. And that's why, like, when I say culture shift, like, we really have to look at, how we're appreciating our DSPs, because it's interesting that we get so we learn behavioral strategies to deal with the people we support, and they work not because they're people with disabilities, but because they're human beings. They're sound proactive behavioral strategies that work. And for some reason, we don't look at being proactive with our staff. We don't look at, well, developing a positive culture will, in the long term, make your staff more productive. Like, in the long term, you're going to have a better workforce if from the beginning your staff feel like they're appreciated and they're wanted and needed. And that's a weird disconnect to me on, like, the skill set's there. We are always preaching, proactive behavioral strategies with the people we support. And then with our staff, it's like, yeah, just go do your job. And it's a weird disconnect for me. So I'm trying to push that idea of, we need to be more appreciative. We need to let people, like you said, it needs to be intentional. And sometimes it really is just thanks for coming in. And recognition is great. Staff person of the month, things like that. That's awesome. But sometimes you just need to be thanked just for doing the bare minimum. When a DSP comes to work and they're working at like 50% capacity and they come in and give you 100% of that 50%, you need a pat on the back after doing that. And most of our DSPs right now, most of all of us in this field, we're not operating at 100%.
That's very, very true. We're not operating at 100%. And that intentional and sincere thank you and what can I do to help you, that acknowledgement goes a long way. And that's free. I know sometimes organizations
exactly
worry about the cost of, I have to buy them all this stuff. It's not necessarily about buying. It's about sincerely being thankful. And the other thing that you touched on, Ken, is what I think you're kind of looking at is that organizations sometimes are very intentional about being person-centered about what the people they support need. The next step is to be person-centered about the people who are providing the support, all the staff members. And if we can do a better job with that culturally in the organization, we will have people who have a better work experience, who have more loyalty to you, who are able to perform better, provide better cares and supports to the people that they are supporting. And it's really full circle about being person-centered. Person-centeredness is about everybody. What does everybody need to be them, to live their best lives, to have their best work life, to have their best personal life? It's all tied together. So what you said was really important. The other thing you talked about was that many staff members are doing maybe different jobs or different hours, particularly people who are working in day services, might be working in group homes or residential services. Early in the pandemic, the Institute on Community Integration at the University of Minnesota and NADSP, the National Alliance for Direct Support Professionals, did a survey with DSPs, and we had an overwhelming response. Thousands of DSPs responded. It was fantastic. And so those were some of the things that we learned, that people were making shifts, which ultimately obviously affects their personal lives, their family lives. The other thing that they really learned was what the pandemic was doing or how it was affecting the people they were supporting in regards to the isolation, and that many of the people being supported were dealing with boredom, maybe some mood swings or depression, increase in, I'd like to call interfering actions, things that are challenging, loneliness, more sleep. All of these sorts of conditions or situations that occur for the people we're supporting make the job even harder, I think, for DSPs. How do you think that has affected DSPs as they are doing their work?
I mean, it's compounded the stress level. For DSPs working in residential, I think it's been difficult that, kind of being in almost a lockdown state for almost a year. You have to cut back on community inclusion. And look, it's one of those things where like it's a double-edged sword. I think I talked about the last time we spoke, but we lost 12 individuals to COVID in our singular program. And we lost 2 staff, but that all happened really in like March and April, which was the worst. I mean, it was like literally every week I was getting a text that someone else passed. So, I mean, health and safety wise, the kind of locking down residential, not going out has worked, because the deaths, at least for our agency, they were kind of front loaded at the beginning of the pandemic. So you kind of understand, all right, this strategy is working and we need to keep people alive. And that's the most important thing. But we kind of don't, the double-edged sword. Now we're seeing that for the people we support, old behaviors popping up, things that we haven't seen in years. And what's tough for the DSPs is I pride myself in, where I work, that we really, over the years, and I've been here, it was 22 years in January, just philosophically, myself, some other staff, our behavior specialists, really putting in place proactive strategies, person-centered. Before there was person-centered, we were thinking in a person-centered way, and because the turnover is so great in our field, there are individuals that are exhibiting behaviors that our newer staff have never seen. We know it because it's historical, but we have individuals that have been really doing well for a significant chunk of time. And now, these old behaviors are popping up, and some of our newer staff are like, wait, like, I've been working with this guy for a year and he's never done this.
Right.
And now you're in a position where, you've never done a physical intervention with this individual, and now all of a sudden you are. And for some of us who are the veterans, we have a historical perspective, like, yeah, that's in his history. But for someone who's newer, it's like, where the hell did that come from? And which all kind of goes back to that appreciation piece, because it just becomes like this piling on with our DSPs. It's like, now there's new behaviors. Now we can't do things. As far as our day treatment or day have, like, our staff are in rooms that aren't necessarily their rooms when they left. We're just, it's fluid. Like, all right, you're going to be in this classroom. So DSPs don't have their materials with them, and they're working with individuals that maybe they haven't worked with in the past. And then the individuals are working with staff that maybe they haven't worked with in the past. So it's just this, I think, for the people we support, I think everyone in this field, people we support, the DSPs, it's just this constant piling on. And even when, like, we reopen, oh, this is a great thing, we're finally getting back, but then it's like new behaviors, new this, you don't have materials, and it's just this constant. And with the COVID hanging over our head the entire time, it's just a constant piling on. That's really difficult when you just, it's almost like a boxing match, and every time you every time you get to a knee, you're getting another punch in the face. It's like, gee, you're not even letting me stand up yet. Like, I'm almost there, and you're getting punched in the face again.
Right. DSPs are really have a lot on their plates, more than ever, and so that appreciation that you're talking about, taking the time to appreciate sincerely and intentionally appreciate the work that they're doing, and encourage them to help provide them what they need, and understand that this is a really difficult time, and sometimes we're just coping the best that we can for today. Some organizations have employee assistance programs, and those can be very helpful for employees to contact to get maybe some mental health support or other things that they might want to talk over financially. So I would encourage DSPs that if they're to check it with their organization to see if they have an employee assistance program that could provide some additional supports to them during this especially difficult time.
Yeah, we have that, and it's really beneficial. And when any DSPs that are watching this, like, I mean, if your agency has it, like, take advantage of it. And it's easy. You just got to go to the website, and it's pretty easy. I think it's 3 therapy sessions if you need to talk to somebody. Just go take advantage of it. One thing I've learned over this, and again, got to be more appreciative of the DSPs, but in and of yourself, and if you are a DSP or working in our field and you're overwhelmed, getting better and being well emotionally, mentally, physically, there's an action there. There has to, I'm all for putting that appreciation out there and making things better as much as I can for our DSPs. But if you're stressed and you're overwhelmed, you have to do something. Like, you have to take action. You're not just going to get better sitting there thinking, all right, I need to get better. And whether that's therapy, taking up exercise, taking up meditation, whatever it is. I really encourage everybody, if you're overwhelmed by this, like, do something, make a change to move in that direction of wellness, because it's not going to just happen.
Right. It's something you have to intentionally do, and you have to find what works for you, and what works for Chet might not be what works for anybody else. And if something doesn't work for you, you try something and
Yes.
it's not working for you, it's okay to switch, but find something that can help kind of refill your cup, if you will. I like to think of going to work and your cup is these days, I think, half full in many instances, and we keep pouring from our cup as we're giving to others. And it's important to find a place that you can refill your cup in whatever way you can do and that's significant to you. Ken, is there anything else that you would like to say before we kind of wrap this up?
Only like to the end of like what I've been talking about. To anyone who's watching this, thank you. Thank you for being out there. I know our DSPs that I've talked to, and I'm sure it's everyone who's watching this, are keenly aware of the lack of media attention towards our field. It seems like every essential worker on the planet is thanked via the media, except for DSPs. It's become abundantly clear during the pandemic that people with disabilities are the most marginalized population in our society, and you're just not appreciated enough. So everyone out there who pick themselves up by their bootstraps, as you said, takes their half cup and goes out to a residence or a day hab or calm hab or whatever you're doing to help people with disabilities navigate through a world that we don't know how to navigate through. Thank you. I appreciate you. I appreciate what you're all doing. Even if I don't see all of you out there that are doing it, it is really remarkable with the lack of resources, what I've seen DSPs doing during this pandemic. So bottom of my heart, thank you.
And I echo what Ken says. Absolutely. Thank you so much. We know that you're going out there every day, you're doing your work, you're supporting people, and you need your cup filled too. We are grateful, and I are both grateful, as well as all the folks at NADSP and the University of Minnesota's Institute on Community Integration. Thank you for all that you do. You are the backbone of this whole thing. You're the ones who help people live the lives that they want to live. None of us are living the lives we want to live right now, but we're trying. We're trying to get through this, and we're trying to get through this all together. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Chet and Ken, for that great conversation. You know, I think we're all still trying to cope with what COVID has meant for us in our lives, but certainly our professional lives, and the discussion that you had, so critical. So thank you both. Next, we are just so pleased to have a Direct Support 3, Direct Support Professional 3, a DSP 3, from Black Hills Works, in an organization out in Rapid City, South Dakota, Jen Peterson. Jen Peterson is a person that has had a really interesting history in her career in direct support, and she talks about that in the article in the Frontline Initiative. And please, again, all these interviews, you can kind of, we've gone very deep with these conversations, but we'd also like you to read the actual interviews in Frontline Initiative too. But Jen Peterson is going to chat now with Dan Hermrich, and Dan Hermrich is our Director of Certification and Accreditation at the National Alliance for Direct Support Professionals. But they're going to have a little conversation about Jen's path and her experiences with the E-Badge Academy, and how that's made her feel about, again, becoming a direct support professional as a career. So, Dan and Jen, take it away.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Hermrich. I'm NADSP's Director of Certification and Accreditation, and it's my honor to be interviewing Jen Peterson from Black Hills Works in Rapid City, South Dakota. Jen is the author of one of the articles in the recent Frontline Initiative. Her article is entitled My Career in Direct Support. Jen is a DSP-3 at Black Hills Works, and that means she's achieved NADSP's highest level of certification. So hello, Jen.
Hi, Dan.
So I wanted to talk to you about this whole certification process that you've been through. I guess maybe the first thing we'll talk about is the training hours. The NADSP certifications, they do require a certain number of accredited education hours at each level, 50 at DSP-1, 100 at DSP-2. Can you talk about how you completed those hours and maybe how this training was different than the typical training DSPs might be used to?
So Black Hills Works used Open Future Learning, which I absolutely adore. So there was so many specialty modules that I was able to dive into, and I'm a knowledge freak, so those were like awesome for me. I was able to achieve my 100 hours of education pretty quickly because I was out on a non-weight bearing injury that I had gotten at work. So I was able to just sit there and do modules. I was bummed when I was at the end of them. And they just go into more depth of what you would get in your typical orientation.
Okay. Do you remember a particular lesson or a particular module that had the biggest impact on you?
John Raphael's Do the Right Thing, and it's WRITE, not RIGHT. It talks all about documentation and how you should have the person supported there, because would you really want somebody writing stuff about you without your knowledge? So, right. I mean, documentation is huge for DSPs, and it's something that we have to do, but I stepped back and I was like, I don't know if I want somebody to write that about me. So his was pretty eye-opening. Great.
So, that's part of the certification process, right? To make sure you have the knowledge and you have the training. The other thing that you had to do was to tell us about your work when you applied for various core competency badges. We kept asking you for examples of your work in which you used certain skills. So I think for DSP-3, you would probably done that about 40 times. You would have told us about situations that happened at work and how you used your skills in those situations. Of those badges, of all those different core competency badges, were any of those particularly memorable, or were there any of those that you were particularly proud of?
I was extremely proud of the researcher badge. It took me a couple tries to get it because wording was wrong, which I didn't realize at first. But we had a gentleman here, and honestly, I don't know how many doctors in the United States know about it. The diagnosis is less than 1 in 1 million people. And so obviously we had never heard of it. So I was able to research it while I was still laid up with my injury, and be able to spread some information to other people in my agency on how to deal with the diagnosis. And then of course, my absolute favorite badge was my DSP-3 one. It was happy but sad all at the same time because I was done.
Yeah. So submitting that last badge and to earning that highest level was a favorite moment.
And it was probably my most anxious moment because I was waiting and waiting, and I kept checking and checking and checking to see if it had been approved yet.
Yeah, sometimes the waiting is the hardest part of the process.
Yes.
I hope you didn't have to wait too long.
No, I think it was like a day.
A day. Well, that was back in March. So as we talk here today, it's been almost 11 months since you earned that DSP-3. It's been almost 11 months since you were logging into the E-Badge Academy and telling us about your work and uploading your training records. Have you noticed any long-term impacts? Is there something you've taken away from the E-Badge Academy that's kind of stayed with you?
So the education, I'm a knowledge freak, and that means like I have to know everything that I can about whatever it is, TV, book, whatever I need to know. Like, so if I hear a diagnosis that I've never heard of, but I'm going to be Googling it just to see what I can learn. So that all kind of stuck with me. The experts on Open Future, and they are experts, they've been in the field forever, so they know what they're talking about. Bits and pieces stuck with me for almost every module. It was nice to be able to have a different viewpoint, because how I see it might not be how like John Raphael sees it, or I know there's a couple of them from England, they see it completely different than we do. And it has made me more confident as as a DSP. I've always been a very strong DSP, get things done, get in there, do what needs to be done. But agency wide, it has been noticed that I have more confidence to actually stand up and say, that's not how it's supposed to be done, or hey, how about we do it this way? I am not the wallflower anymore. I'm more like in your face.
Well, I'm actually really glad to hear that. That was kind of one of our goals in developing the E-Badge Academy. Is we know there's skilled DSPs, all over the country, but often they don't realize how skilled they are. So yeah, I'm glad that, as you were earning these badges, it was telling you that, hey, you have real skills, they're valuable skills, and I hope you're continuing to use those skills. It sounds like you are each and every day.
I try. And even if you are coming up to the badges, like there's things that I would have never categorized the way that the badges were. So like, oh yeah, I do that, but I would have never called it that. So
Right.
you just have to sometimes dive in and hope for the best.
Yeah. The one I always think about is informal assessment.
Yes.
That's
The
that
assessment
moment.
ones threw me for a loop, because I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't do assessments.
Yeah, but you do. Any of those moments where you notice something's not quite right, and you're documenting and you're reporting and you're getting other professionals involved. I mean, that's a really, really important skill. And of all the DSPs I've known, I don't know very many that weren't good at that informal assessment. But it's not something we talk about, right? It's not something we think of as
Well,
a
and it's
profession.
not something, I wouldn't have categorized it as that. I would have categorized it as something different.
Yeah.
So
All right. Well, Jen, our time is running out. Thank you so much for talking with us today. I hope your experience is useful to all those other DSPs out there that are going through the E-Badge Academy or thinking about going through the E-Badge Academy. And congratulations on earning our highest level of certification and on this wonderful article in Frontline Initiative.
thank you.
Thank you, Dan and Jen, for that very important discussion, and so interesting and inspiring and certainly educational for all of us. And we appreciate you, Jen, becoming and being a direct support professional 3 and certified with the National Alliance for Direct Support Professionals. So thank you for this discussion. Next, on our last conversation for this Frontline Initiative webinar, I do it. So I'm kind of introducing me, which I'm going to just let the interview speak for itself. But I had the wonderful honor and privilege to record an interview with Emily Wild Turner. And Emily is the CEO of Living Opportunities, Inc. in beautiful Medford, Oregon. But what Emily's going to talk about is the importance of language, professional language. And she'll explain this. I'm going to just leave it alone. If we're going to look at this notion of making direct support a professional career, we have to, we would be remiss if we don't talk about the importance of professional language. So no further ado, listen to Emily and learn. Hi, everybody. My name is John Raphael, and I'm the Director of Educational Services at the National Alliance for Direct Support Professionals. And this is an exciting day because what we're doing is we are taking our partnership with Frontline Initiative and the Institute and Community Integration and the University of Minnesota and the National Alliance for Direct Support Professionals. And we're a big old partnership that puts out we try to do it twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year, something called the Frontline Initiative. If you're not familiar with it, it's really the only periodical that's been around for many, many years for direct support professionals. And what we're doing today is we're featuring a few people that wrote in the last issue. And the last issue of Frontline Initiative was all about direct support as a career. And that sounds strange, right? As a career, direct support as a career. Yes, that's our mission. We want people to become direct support professionals and really good ones. So in this issue, we had a ton of different articles and they were really great. But one of my favorite articles was from a colleague and a friend of mine who you see on the screen. And this I'd like to introduce you to Emily Weil-Turner. And Emily is the Chief Executive Officer of Living Opportunities in Medford, Oregon for our Oregon. We've spent a lot of time in Oregon, and actually the NADSP has been with Emily and her team. And I tell you right now, we're in for a conversation this next 10 minutes that's going to, I think, inspire you, educate you, and here we go. So Emily also is a parent, and she's a parent of a wonderful young man who has disability, and she's going to talk a little bit about that, I would imagine. But let's start off first. Emily, welcome and thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Great.
So excited.
Good. So what you wrote about in your article was about the power of language and how language it's more than political correctness, right? In our field, there's a lot of language, there's a lot of jargon, but there's also a lot of disrespectful language. So just talk a little bit, I guess, about language and what it means to you as certainly as an executive director or a CEO of an organization that supports people, but also as a parent. Just if you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I believe that language shapes what we believe about humans as a whole. And in this conversation, I really believe that what we say shapes our beliefs about people with disabilities and what is possible for them. And what we say 100% shapes what other people who don't get to work and have relationships and love and realize that people with disabilities have all the same, should have, and I'm sure in the organizations that you work in do have all the same opportunities to work and live and experience in their communities, all the same things that you and I do. So what we say shapes what you and I believe. It shapes even more importantly, what other people outside believe is possible for people who experience disabilities. So that can happen for me with big words, the obvious words like the R word, but it can even happen in small words, in the things that we say that are possessive words, in words that I am still learning are words that maybe had historical meanings in the past. I think as we know better, right, we learn new things, we should decide as humans, do I need to use this word? If I don't, can I take this out of my language? For me, if I'm going to hurt another human being, if this is going to offend somebody, is this something I need to use? Whether that's somebody who experiences a disability, whether that's somebody, a of a different race, no matter who it is. For me, if this is something that's going to bring down someone else, I've made the choice. I believe words have power, language has power, and in this conversation today, I believe that we need to be very cognizant of the words that we use.
Now, we have this Facebook page. The National Alliance for Direct Support Professionals has with 23,000 plus people that are on it every day.
Yeah.
Frankly, we sometimes bristle when we see some of the language used. We try not to be judgmental. We try not to, and let me give you an example. Classic phrase, wheelchair bound, right? Wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
Most people that I know that use wheelchairs, they don't bind anybody. They give you freedom. So it's like a little thing like that. Wheelchair bound could be something that a direct support professional would say without any kind of malice, without any kind of ill intention. But the reality is, it's not really, it's not accurate. It's not
Right.
accurate. You know,
Right.
Behaviors. Emily, have you ever had a behavior?
I mean, first of all, I have behaviors all the time.
Okay.
You should ask people in my life, right? I mean, all the time. But nobody ever calls it that, right? Nobody ever says like, I mean, Emily is having behaviors. They say Emily is having a bleep day, right? I told you before this, I would watch my mouth. But like nobody, the words that we use when we talk about people who experience disabilities are not the words that we use when we talk about you and I. And that is what I'm talking about today. That, like, if we could bring it down to one thing, it's about what words do we use? We could just throw those words away, right? Just stop using it. Like, we could just make it so much easier. We don't have to use, like, we could just make it so much easier. We don't have to use those words.
So what about this though? So professionals, right? Whatever kind of professional we're talking about, whether it's nursing, lawyers, accountants, there is jargon, right? There's
Absolutely. Doctor, in professional settings. So maybe once a year, if you're writing, you know, an ISP, an IEP, those might have to be used in that setting. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the 99.99% of the rest of life, right? Of course, in my son's IEP, words are going to be used that are words that we don't use in any other facet of his life. Those are not words that we use to describe who he is and what he experiences and what his life looks like. Those are words in a legal document that then gets used to reference about then how his supports need to look in a classroom, in his life. But that's not what his life is. That's not who he is. And that's not how anyone in his life is going to talk about him. Do you see this face? All of a sudden I became the mother. Do you see this face?
And Mom. Hello, Mom.
Sorry.
So, yeah, no, that's good because it's interesting in your position as you have a loved one that experiences a disability, and whether that your son has direct support people in his life or not, it sounds as though you don't necessarily care about, you want people to be professional, but the language that should be used with your son should be the language that's used with him all the time and not separated in some sort of disability world thing. I think that's what we're getting at, because we could go down the list of the things that we say: behaviors, getting meds, passing meds. Oh my gosh, the list is long. Toileting.
When you get up in the morning, do you ever say, did you go toilet? Nobody ever says that in real life, right? Like, I understand that there's language that we have to use, right? I'm fully cognizant that that's language that we have to use and that we use, whether that's in TheraP, in like, right, that we're trained within trainings to use.
Yeah.
In real life, when we are talking human to human, that can go out the window, and it should go out the window, and it has to go out the window, because do you want people in your life talking to you that way? Like, do you want that to be how people in your world talk to you? Probably not. I don't. I would never. Oh, would never.
It's interesting because when you think about this, we have been trying to fight against this forever when it comes to the disability rights movement.
Right. It's not a new issue.
Yeah, it's not and it's us versus them, right? So it's when you are using a language and a labeling type of language, yes, legally, you're going to have to do that sometimes, without a doubt. You know that, you know, ISPs, IEPs, all of that. You're going to have to use certain language, otherwise you're not going to get funded. But if we continue, like you said, to use that language on an ongoing basis, we are continuing to separate ourselves in we're a different class of people. I don't toilet, I use the bathroom. No.
Right.
And people will say, oh, you're getting politically correct. No. What would you say to that if people say, oh, you're just being politically correct, Emily? What would you say to them?
No, because the reality is, what we're doing is we're taking the humanity away from people, right? So everyone in the world, we use like a certain type of way that we speak to each other. And then we say, but when we talk to these people, we talk a different way, right? And so all of a sudden it's not politically correct. We're becoming us and them. And we're saying we respect people, we love people, and anytime we then segregate, and I'm going to use that word because that's what we're doing, anytime we then segregate people with disabilities away from the rest of our community, we're then moving a step backwards. And language, the words we use, it's segregation doesn't only happen in buildings, on buses, language. I'm a firm believer that language can do that too. The words we use can do that. You know, this is my soapbox. Language can segregate as well. So anytime we use words that becomes an us and them, that then identifies whether that we're using that language in someone's home or out at Target or at a festival, wherever we are with them, anytime we use language that then identifies that you're not a part of the community that you live in, we're then separating them from the rest of the community that they live in. And it's far, far bigger than political correctness.
Yeah. We have time for maybe one more thought from you. I wish I could talk to you for the whole hour, but what advice do you have for direct support professionals in terms of how can they start to become aware of their language if they don't even realize that what they're saying might be, I don't think most DSPs are disrespectful. That's not the point. But how can they look at their language and monitor their language? Any suggestions you have?
100%. So first of all, I never think direct support professionals or anyone is choosing to do this disrespectfully. Nobody wants to be disrespectful. I think our system has created this unintentionally. It's our jobs to say, we're going to stop this and we're going to turn and do something different. So I think first and foremost, when you're talking about someone or to somebody, you can ask them, number one, what is the language that if I'm talking to you or about you, that you would like me to use. That is first and foremost. And number two, the second thing we can do is we can look at words, systems, words that we use within ourselves. We could start having those conversations with colleagues, right? If we're working on a team, and we could start having those conversations. We can say to our managers, can we have a conversation about, and can we identify what are those words we're using, and can we start like replacing them with other words? We could say, let's leave those for systems, and can we start using regular words in our everyday lives, identifying that we want to change this trajectory. We want to change the direction we're heading, and we want to head down a different path for the people that we work for the people that we care about, and we want to head down a different road.
Yeah. One of the things you wrote within your article, which I recommend everybody read if you haven't read it already, in the latest issue of Frontline Initiative, one of the lines, it's about, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. And you said that's a lie. And it's a lie. It's a lie. Names,
Completely.
It hurts. It hurts bad. Especially the R word. My goodness, there's been campaigns around the world against the R word, of course, because it not only it hurts, it's prejudicial, and we can't have that. And we have a professional responsibility to really look at our language. But any final words that you'd like to tell everybody that's watching?
Yeah, I think that the work that direct support professionals do is some of the most important work that is done in our communities, period, hands down. And from a CEO perspective, from a mother's perspective, I can't thank you enough for the work that you do. Don't want to get emotional.
You're welcome to.
I need you to continue to do the good, important work that you're doing. I need this workforce to be what it is. I need it to continue down that path of being professionalized. I need you to have big dreams for people with disabilities, because that is what people like my son expect from this workforce. So I'm so excited for this, and thank you for tuning into NADSP and continuing to partner with them. So
Emily, you said it all.
thank you, my
I hope
friend.
to see you in Oregon sometime in 2021. All right?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Emily, awesome. Emily is a really wonderful human being. I happen to have the privilege of not only being a colleague, but a friend. And so, Emily, thank you for such an important topic. And I know I'm going to watch my language continually. So thank you. So thank you all for joining us for this deeper dive into the Frontline Initiative issue on making direct support a career. I hope these brief conversations have given you an idea of the incredible things that are possible being a direct support professional, and a little bit more about kind of what we like to say, kind of the soul of our work. So until next time, we've got a couple things to close with. We have a really interesting thing that we're starting this year, and we've had to pivot because of COVID-19, quite obviously. We're doing everything in this format for the time being until we can get back into rooms with people and into places where we can be with the direct support professionals and people with disabilities. We're going to be starting some virtual training, and these are all meant to be about maybe 2 to 3 hours long. This one's going to be about a 3-hour training. And this one is one that we've done for many years. We've kind of created it into a smaller version of the full day trainings that we have done in the past. And this one is creating a culture of competence. And it'll be February 24th from 12 to 3. It'll be live. It'll be Eastern Standard Time. And if you want more information about that, just go to our website, nadsp.org. I believe that there's going to be some links in the chat box that you can download, which is great, to find this virtual training and other offerings that we have. Always look to us for benefits of membership. And again, go on nadsp.org and look for membership and all the things that it consists of and what you get from being a member. Many of you are probably likely already members, and that's great. But please spread the word that we are an organization that's all about the great work of direct support, and we have lots of resources for direct support professionals. Jen and Dan talked obviously about the E-Badge Academy. You want to know more about that and more details about that, you can certainly contact Dan. If you go to our nadsp.org website, you can actually find all of us, and you can email us individually or call us, or you can learn about the E-Badge Academy by going and exploring the website. Always look for Frontline Initiative. The next issue we are hoping to have out April, May of 2021. We try to put 2 out a year. And little tease, this next one is going to be about crisis and about how direct support professionals engage their profession during a crisis, whether it's an environmental crisis, a psychiatric crisis, or whatever kind of crisis you can imagine. We're going to address that because DSPs, one of their competencies is crisis prevention and intervention. So please look for Frontline Initiative, always coming your way twice a year. Please reach out to us at any given time. We want to hear from you. We appreciate all that you do as direct support professionals. And until next time, we'll see you later. Thank you for joining us today. We appreciate you.